Going to call the Monday, June 23rd, 2025 regular meeting of the Jersey Shore Area School District Board of School Directors to order. Can I have a roll call? Mr. Enders, please.
Mr. Allen.
Present.
Mr. Bernard. Here. Mr. Calhoun.
Here.
Ms. Edwards.
Here.
Mr. McDonald.
Here.
Peters.
Here.
Mr. Furman.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas.
Here.
Stenler.
Here.
All 9 members present.
Thank you. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we will have approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion. Second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the treasurer's report, may I have a motion, please?
Motion. Second.
Any questions or comments?
Just speak to the investment report. Very typical month. We had 2 CDs mature. We purchased 2 CDs. We are looking at doing something very similar again this week. Interest rates are still reverse curve, meaning that the interest rate on short term is higher than on longer term. So we'll be looking to doing something similar again.
Thank you, Mr. Enders. Any questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the bills. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or concerns?
Bills are very normal. Actually, they're a little bit down with our typical month. Sugar Valley's May invoice was $102,358.82. There's the $1 million CD purchase we just talked about in the bills, and also it was a 3-pay month. I know that the payroll dates are listed as April, but it's actually supposed to be May. 3-pay month. So when you take into consideration those usual items, they were higher than what the bills were lower than what they are typically.
Thank you, Mr. Enders. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to communications, Dr. Almer.
I have nothing under communications this evening.
Under the President's report, I first just want to state that we are going to pull letter G under personnel off of the agenda tonight, and we will be placing that on in a future agenda. I want to announce that we had an executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel and contracts. Next, we will have board representative committee reports. Jesse, do you have a report to give this evening?
There will be no IU meeting for the month of July. And also, I would just like to mention that Dr. Reed gave me permission to say that the IU autistic program will be the same program for the next school year, and that we hope for another successful year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Thomas?
Looking at the on the policy committee, we're working on right now, policy 108, adoption of textbooks, and policy 109, resource materials. As far as the policy goes, they seem to be okay the way they were written. What the committee felt is that we need to make some adjustments on the administrative regulations, so that's what we're working on finishing by adding some additional questions that were there, and should be ready probably soon to put up. And then we're also looking into a couple other policies that we will be getting back to you with.
Thank you. Mr. Brungard?
Yeah, I have, I think everybody got the report on the South School, how we're gonna, DEP recommended that we divide those into 4 lots now instead of 5. And I did visit the middle school last week. I met Mr. Wall over there. Good thing I did, because they wouldn't let me in the gymnasium there, but we took a look at the gymnasium, just stuck our heads in the door basically, and they had everything torn out at the ceiling and stuff, and they still had some nails up there to tear out, but progress was going on there. We walked through the school, and probably 95% of all the ceiling tiles out of there. I think the only ceiling tile that's left is maybe the ones that have lights in them, and maybe something else what the electrician simply has to remove them rather than the general workers up there. Some unit ventilators were put in. You can see where they were foamed in, and they had the blue board underneath them for insulation and stuff. And basically that's it. Work is in progress there, moving ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brungard. Next, we will have the superintendent's report. Dr. Ulmer?
I'm going to start by pointing out that there are a number of job descriptions on the agenda this evening. Kim Holter and I continue to work through job descriptions. We're actually on to athletic job descriptions, so we're involving Mr. Minter and writing athletic job descriptions. Those are all on tonight for presentation. Will be on for approval in a subsequent meeting. I believe it was a month ago, we had a conversation where Mr. Crape reported to the board how he has planned to use over time our technology reserve budget. And so what I provided for you to respond to a question that I was asked in that conversation, you have in front of you a report that shows answers to the questions I was asked. The first one was, what does it look like if I'm a student, and how much time am I using an iPad every day? So this came from conversations with grade level leaders, building principals, teachers across the district that substantiated this. So you have 3 things. You have on the left-hand side by grade, how much time a student would on average be using an iPad daily. Anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes in kindergarten to up to 60 minutes or more in 5th grade. I was also asked subsequent to that, what does that look like? What are kids doing? So the second column comes directly from your teachers and principals, and what are the standard apps that are being used? And then below the graph, I actually, for each of those apps, gave you a synopsis of what it is and what a student would be doing with it. I'll summarize by saying they're largely interventions, and what the teachers are saying to me, and what you see there is, if I'm on my iPad, it's something specific to me. Like, I need to work on this specific skill, or I have a gap over here. And so these programs, whether it be, I'm looking at things like iReady, Math Seeds, and K12, Reading Eggs, and K12, it's intervention. So if a teacher could go in and say, I want Mr. Brungard to work on this skill, but I want Mrs. Thomas to work on this skill, and those can be individually assigned out to students using the technology. So that's what you're seeing across in that second column. And in the third column, one of the concerns that I got was, well, if I'm at K1-2 and I'm learning to write by hand, how is that done outside of the iPad work? So what I asked that question specifically to the K1-2 teachers, and so you see the answers there in front of you, and I did prompt it. I just asked the question because I wanted their honest answer. And so you're seeing everything from all writing and all responses in kindergarten are done paper and pencil, right up to second grade teachers telling me they're practicing their handwriting every day with specific lessons. So I wanted you to have this information to look at and digest. Please feel free to ask questions even after today. But I know that I hear a lot, oh, I just come to school. My kids come to school and they get on their iPad and that's all they do all day long. Clearly not, based on what your teachers and principals are reporting is happening across the system. Questions at this point?
So I don't want to kind of be the bully here, but you say they're clearly not. But when you break down they're on school premises for how long, for how many hours a day?
Instructional time I think is, I have to do math, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. So if I'm elementary, I'm here for 5.5 to 6 hours.
Okay. So you subtract 60 to an hour and a half, 60 minutes to an hour and a half. That takes you down to how much?
4.5, 5 hours.
Right. Then you have lunch, then you have a special. Those are each like 45 minutes, half hour, 45 minutes.
30
So
and
there
40.
goes another hour. So instructional time, the average kid is getting what? 3 hours? Got recess in there, got bathroom breaks. So I'm not saying that what we're doing is wrong. I'm just saying this shouldn't be, in my opinion. We shouldn't be putting kids in front of a device for 60 to 90 minutes a day when they already have a limited amount of time. I rather see all of these programs. We pay a lot of money for programs. That is a huge cost savings that we could have for the district. And I would rather pay for a teacher than a device any day.
Anybody else?
I think I'm to understand. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Tim.
Jerry. I just tend to, I think Kayla's correct. We pay teachers, there's a lot of other ways. Too much technology is not good. A kindergartner, especially 1, 2, we say those are the important years. Shouldn't a teacher be doing that and not a device? So I would tend to agree with Kayla's comments.
Just to understand, is this like supplemental? Like these things that are, because I don't know how all this stuff works, and under the applications column, that, is it supplemental to like assist the teacher into like, if a student seems to be struggling, that these things are used or the iPad is used to send them off in an area to improve? Or is this actually, should I be understanding this as this is taking like the teaching position? You know what I'm saying? Kind of like what's being understood. And
So if you go to, I know one of the largest uses, especially K-5, is iReady, math, and ELA. The students are taking, so to answer your question, the students are taking an assessment. It's saying, here's the, similar to my conversation about Harry needs this, Mary needs this. students take an assessment, a learning path is designed for them individually. So they are still learning math from their teacher, but the intervention that maybe is a skill they missed last year, the year before, that is something that can be personalized using the technology.
Is everybody at the same place, the textbook, or I ready? Whatever.
Instructionally, yes, where that is
This
a,
just like a supplement?
this would be,
instead of-
to use Sherry's word, yes, supplementary intervention.
Instead of handing out worksheets, you work in this way then.
So, I want to go back to what you said, because I had a thought. I think the next step for me, I'll plot out. I think I need to plot out, take this information and give you a schedule and show you what it looks like. But also, and I hear what you're saying, I think we need to also engage in a conversation with, because I don't want to say, I want the teachers to be involved and you hear it directly as well. Like, I'm globalizing right now. You're getting, here's what it looks like on an average day. And so I want to do both. I want to plot out the schedule so that you can see it. And I think we need to figure out how to have that conversation.
And I feel bad because I feel like that was very attacking, and I didn't want it to be presented that way. But with having children in the district and knowing the stress of, well, our teacher says we have to do IXL for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, like, and they don't get it done, then that pours over into my time at home. And I don't want to go against what the teacher says, because if my kid needs that help, I want to be able to help her, but I want that chance to also be the person that is engaging with my child, saying, okay, so your teacher said you need help in math. What is your math? I'm not the other person on the other end of the computer. I'm trying to sit next to you, and, you know, like, that kind of, I feel like we're just taking that away from, first off, the kids. Secondly, the family dynamic. Like, I
think that needs to be part of the larger conversation.
Yeah. Agree.
I would be curious to know, since we've implemented all of these things under this applications column, what has it done? Do the kids, are the kids is doing better, worse, or staying the same as to prior to having all of this stuff? Has it made a positive, you know what I mean? You understand what I'm saying?
I do, and I can confidently say, we went back, because you asked me that question, and I think you want me, the public needs to hear it. I went back and looked at data from 2019 that the principals pulled for me when I came. I'm generalizing to elementary, into where we were in this past year. And it is improved significantly. Now, I can't point to this and say, it's absolutely, that's the part where I'm struggling, is I can't point to this and say, it's absolutely this, because there's a lot of things we've done in the last 5 years. But the data is very different now than it was in 2019.
I'm just going to throw this in the conversation just because it is on the agenda for further, if I may. But also the money point of it. Like, I would like to have a breakdown of what we are spending on all of these programs, because if, you know, later on in the meeting, we're talking about hiring another teacher and it being too much. But if we didn't have all this, like, that kind of would be a no-brainer. Like, let's keep our class sizes small. Let's let our teachers do their jobs.
I can break that. I can probably pull that right out of the technology budget, but I can resend it.
Thank you.
The upper grades, the 90 minutes is the upper level per day. That kind of bothered me per day. Not saying that they shouldn't use them at all, but an hour and a half a day, that's a lot.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do you know if there's teachers who prefer not to use the iPads and textbook and pencil and, do we, is like, is
Well,
there?
and I think you're hearing that in some of their responses about
s-
K-1 too. I mean, and they are using, even some of this. So for example, iReady, the teachers can go on and get some of those a lot of those materials can be printed or displayed or PDF out. And I've had that conversation with teachers that some of those things are being printed and handed out and done together versus done on the computer. So I would say yes, they are definitely,
Are teachers though, are they required though to have X amount of time on the tablets?
they are required for the learning path, that's the intervention
Okay,
portion.
so they're required to do it. Now, would they rather not use the iPad and do a different form is my question.
Some of them are doing that like in a small group base, like if I'm a teacher and I look at the learning path and Mrs. Stemler needs to do this skill and so do I, and so do you, maybe I take that off of their learning path and sit down and do that in a small group during intervention time. That also is possible.
Do you think there would be a savings if we didn't have to have X amount of tablets going out to families? Because, like, if they're only like 15 to 30 minutes, 30 minutes tops they're using in the classrooms. Do we need that many? Like, can we have like shared tablets that would save? And I know this sounds like a lot to probably like have to achieve that.
I want to go back to, I think that's a part of the larger conversation that we would have to have,
Yes.
because I want to make sure that we are thinking of all of the things.
Only that
to-
would, and I know, like, for instance, like, if you have a tablet, most of the parents well, not most, I'd say, because you have the majority of parents that don't have service in their homes. So those students have tablets that they're taking home that they can't even, they have to go to, like, the grandparents or someplace else to use them. But for the most part, if there's say, like, a percentage, like, say if it's even, like we wouldn't need to purchase more tablets for K through 2 because they're not being used. And if they're not going home, they're not being jostled, tossed, and bumped and knocked. Why can't we just have, like a port station where they just stay in the classroom and nobody even has and if they need to take it home, then they can, sign it out and take it home or something, or if necessary, but I don't know if that's feasible. Like, that seems like it's a lot of responsibility, like, for a teacher, though. And I don't want it to come off like I think they have extra time where that they can do that either. I don't want to be I'm not that ignorant.
I'm taking
Yeah.
notes so I can add
Add
that
it
to the
to it.
conversation. One thing I do want to point out, and I appreciated, Mr. Furman did ask me this question. Don't forget, and you didn't do this, I didn't do this, but it's a thing, is starting in 3rd grade, every PSSA and Keystone exam in fall of 2025 will have to be taken virtually. So I understand what you're saying about sharing K1 too. It's not even possible 3 through, because those exam windows are pretty much all at the same time.
Wow.
So it's not like I can test 3rd grade this week and 4th grade next week and 5th grade, and that's a thing. They're all virtual. And the practice exams are also all virtual.
So I have one question. What does that look like with districts that don't have one-to-one iPads for students to take exams? How is that accomplished
I
then?
don't know, because it starts in fall of 2025.
Okay,
That we piloted some of them, like some, not even with all kids, with some grades in the spring of 2025, we were allowed to pilot. So we did have some grade levels took just so that we could see what it would look like, but not all. It was only a handful of grade levels across the system to try it. But in fall of next year, it is going to be required to be all virtual.
So a mandate without money.
You're correct.
This may be off topic a little bit, but since we're talking about PSSAs and Keystones going virtual, am I misinformed that you're not allowed to look at the content of those tests? Like parents cannot look at the content of?
Parents are able to come in and look at the content prior to, there is a process in place for that.
Is it a sample test or is it the test? Because
ahead.
I've got an issue with that. I'm just saying, I've got an issue with anybody being tested virtually without the parents knowing what's on that test.
Yeah, I did not see them myself, but I almost 99% sure that it is the test. They get a test ticket, they get a parent test ticket, and then they have to sit with the principal, and the principal will get on the computer with them and look at the test with them.
How many hours do they take to take those tests? So, I
Well, they
mean,
don't
I'm
take
not
the te-
coming after
yeah.
you, I'm just asking,
I know,
like,
they
it
don't-
seems a
Yeah,
little
they don't
impossible.
take the test, though. They have access to look at the test.
Well, we have Dr. Osenbach in the hot seat. Renaissance Learning is on this, and that is also a benchmark program. Am I correct?
I believe they
It-
also, yeah, they can take a STAR test through Renaissance Learning.
Yeah,
You're correct.
they can, yes.
Is that one that I mean, that's a whole other can of worms, this testing. But is that one that we tell our teachers that they have to do?
No.
Okay.
We will probably be having a little bit further discussion about Renaissance.
Okay.
And while I have my microphone on, I did want to point out that some of the time frame, and of course, I don't know exactly how much, like what percentage of the 30 to 90 minutes is used on each thing, and I don't know that teachers could even really spell that out for you. But I did want to point out that some of the things like Kahoot and Seesaw, well, Kahoot is interactive during the teacher lessons, so that's not, kids aren't doing that on their own. Seesaw is mainly used for communicating with parents and, like it says there, handing out and collecting materials electronically. So that's not necessarily a platform that, kids are sitting in school on without teachers. Blookit is also a game that they play typically with the teacher. Ed Puzzle, interactive tool during teacher lessons. So I just wanted to point out that it's not all just a kid on a device by themselves. So, I think there's a lot more, and I like the idea of a whole discussion about all of these things, because I think this is a good start, but I think it's a lot more involved than what's on this paper.
Any other questions at this moment?
Do we know what that discussion platform is going to look like?
I just wrote down on my note sheet whether or not I will have to talk to Mrs. Stemler about a committee for that.
A committee, or are we going to do open discussions like we?
We'll have,
Okay.
do you have any suggestions?
No, I was just curious. Just curious.
I don't have an answer, I just wrote that down.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would want to know, like, if we move this stuff, like, if they didn't have it, I would like to hear from the teachers, this is what's going to happen if you do this. I mean, I got to have a clear picture, I just need to understand this.
Does this continue on through middle school, high school?
Yes, but we didn't ask
Yeah,
about that.
they-
We only asked about the elementary.
But it does,
Yeah, it still exists in middle school, high school, I just didn't ask
the
for that
remedial
information.
programs are all on iPads then, and refer them to iPads like mathematics and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time grasping that, okay.
You wanna come see it?
No, I kind of have an idea how it works, but I just can't believe, like in algebra, if some kid doesn't have a concept of something one day, and you go to the next lesson, like factoring or something, you're behind, send them for remedial work, I mean, I don't know, I have a problem with it a little bit.
So here's another piece of that. There's something called rotational stations, and I'm not saying it correctly. But a lot of times, and I've seen it done in elementary, so the teacher will break kids into kind of like their needs based on like, let's say, a math topic. The teacher will work with a small group of kids on that one topic, and then they will move to another station where they work together on something, either that topic or maybe a topic that they've all worked on in class together. And then they'll go to an independent station where they're practicing the thing that they need to practice. So it's a way to get kids that smaller group time with their teacher while still being able to practice some of the skills that they need practice on as well. So there's, like I said, it's a very involved conversation.
So back to your point, it probably would not be, you missed something yesterday, go work on your iPad. It might be, other people move forward on or practice while you go work with this couple kids who are behind.
In other words, everybody's not on the same stage, I guess, everybody's
It helps with that.
randomly all over the place, which, all right. But,
I would say centrally they are in the upper grades on the same page, but doesn't mean that they're not working backwards to fulfill a missing piece.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I actually have one for you
Go
before
for
we
it.
move on. So I know we asked you, K to 5, when school comes back in and the teachers return, are you able to do the middle school?
Yeah.
And then also do the high school for us as well, please?
Okay.
What are you asking about?
If I can produce this for middle school and high
Oh,
school.
probably might have to produce it by subject area, I would guess, but.
It might be, I'll see what
No
I'll
major,
work on it.
no, I was just
I'm
gonna say,
glad
no
that
major
you
hurry.
said when school is back in.
in.
'Cause No one's answering those emails right now.
I would assume not, or wise they are, I wouldn't either. No, it's totally fine. I know that a lot of this came from the teachers, so I'm patient. We'll wait. But thank you for getting back to us on this.
That's my report.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Almer. Next, we will have courtesy of the floor. We had one person sign up, Mr. Fox.
Okay, my name's Bob Fox. I live at 1025 Creekside Lane in beautiful Pine Creek Township. That's for you, Harry. I know you like that. I wanted to talk about letter E, unfinished business, the class sizes. I believe you've had discussions before about, I think it might be second grade, where you're considering hiring a new teacher. I think those class sizes are close to 25. The only data that I really have from personal experience is being at the high school as a math teacher. About 3 years ago, I had 2 academic geometry classes, same building, same course. One class had 16 kids in it, the other class had 24 kids in it. And it was amazing to me how much more the class with 16 kids in it helped each other out. And I'm not even talking just about the academic math part of it, but just feeling good about yourself and those things that are really important to our kids. And I can imagine in a second grade class having 25 kids with one teacher, it would be a lot more difficult. I'm not sure what the recommendations are for class size in elementary school, so I did what everybody does now, and I asked Google. I said, what does the Pennsylvania Department of Education recommend? And it says it recommends a maximum of 25 students per class for grades 1, 2, and 3, and a maximum of 30 students per class for grades 4 through 8, according to the Pennsylvania Code. Additionally, there is a recommendation for a district-wide class average of 18 students in grades 1 through 3. So we're beyond that, I think, district-wide average class size of 18 that PDE recommends. Now, I know there's a question about how much is it going to cost in order to do this. Well, the way I would look at this is we closed Salleysburg to save money, and in doing so, I believe there was probably around 6 or so teachers that were not replaced from last year to this year. So now we're looking at, instead of only 6 not being replaced, only 5. So it's not like it's going to cost us more money than what it did last year. We're just not going to save as much money. And when I look back to see what last year's budget was, it was projected to have about a $200,000 deficit, but in the end, it had a $1.3 million surplus. So even before we closed Salleysburg, we still had an extra $1.5 million that we didn't think we were going to have. And now with closing Salleysburg and all of the savings that we were told that we would have, I would think that we'd definitely be able to afford to hire one more teacher in one more grade. Thank you very much. I think my time's about up. Not that I timed it to go exactly 3 minutes, but that's pretty good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. All right, next we will be discussing unfinished business. On tonight's agenda, it is class sizes.
You have in front of each of you, at the end of the last conversation, Mr. Furman had asked me if I could put together something so that you guys would see what the different options are that were discussed and what they would look like. So you have in front of you a document that has the 4 things that we've discussed, adding a teacher, adding paraprofessional support, not moving forward with the current 5 sections, and then moving students out of JSE to AVIS. I gave you all 4 options and a synopsis of each one. I also gave, based on a question that I was asked, what are the other support, what other support is available? So I gave you that there is at JSE a learning support teacher and a learning support paraprofessional assigned to K-2, an emotional autistic support teacher and a para for that person assigned to K-2. You will have 3.5 Title I reading specialists there and also 2 Title I reading paraprofessionals. All of those are dedicated to K-3, so they are all available as well. One thing I did say to Mrs. Stemler as a reminder, sorry, let me back up. As a reminder, I recommended previously that we continue to have 5 sections. I did say to Mrs. Stemler, I would like to have a conversation, before we get too deep into the conversation, at some point I'm going to ask that we go around the table and you give me your individual input so that we have a sense of what we would like to do moving forward. But I will open it for conversation.
Take one. This was sent out to you, not this past Friday, but on the, whatever that was, the 13th or whatever the heck it was. And what's on the front side of this page, there's enough for you to have one, Ben, if you want it. What's on the front side of this page is things that I discussed in the last 2 meetings. And on the back is what's new, and I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion on that. So I did something a little different to give you a different variety, a wider issue of the data that we have in our school district. And so I went from 2016-18, which is kind of, that should be 16-17, which is kind of what Dr. Omer first gave us out, all the way up to this 2025. And you see that there's two 2025s, and the reason, the bottom one was not on the thing that you got in the Friday notes unless, because that's something I did since he gave us the 6-2 enrollment figures, which are the enrollment figures to start fall at this point. But if you look at this here, you basically have the school year, you have the total number of teachers that year in elementary, K to 5, in the next column. Then in the next column, you have the number of teachers in that grade level, the size range in that grade level. And that's the same way the whole way across there. So if you look in the total number of K to 5 teachers, 10 years ago we had 54 teachers in elementary school. Coming up to the fall of 25-26, we were down to 42 teachers. So we've lost 12 teachers in 10 years in the elementary level. I'm not saying we shouldn't have lost them, because some of them should have been lost naturally because of lower class sizes and that. But if you look at if you look at 21, 22 to 22, 23, that particular year we added 4 teachers to the elementary school. And if I remember, basically had to do with what was coming in the earlier grades in the outlying school. They were getting up to 30 and we were dividing them. But the one thing that I want you to notice, from 22 to 23 to 23, 24, it dropped down to 48. So just because we added them the 1 year, they didn't stay in the district once the need wasn't there. And we have not furloughed any teachers. So the attrition is taking care of those numbers. So it's not like you put somebody in and forever we're going to be paying for that teacher. Then from last year to this new year, as Mr. Fox, we lost 5 teachers. And that was our intention, that we thought we would do that. We weren't sure that we would do it in the first year and that we would do it through attrition, and that's kind of what we did. The thing is that I think we missed out on this a little bit because I think we should have kept one of those. Now, you would have to be a new hire because there were 5 people that retired in those grade levels. Now, if you look at second grade, which is the one, and this 6-2 kind of gave me numbers that were a little higher than we had before, so that's okay too, but they're pretty reasonable, except I have the problem in second grade. If you look at second grade, in 1 year, 2018-19, there was 1 teacher that had 25 or more kids. Now I'm not talking about 25, 26, but up through 24, 25, and all of those 9 years, there were only 1 teacher in second grade that had 25 or more kids. And you can also see that the top range 1 year is 19, 21, 21, 19, 24, 20, 22, and 21. So they basically were, I'm going to say, average 21 to 22 in the second grade. So you come to this year, you have 5 classes that have 25 or more kids in each of their class. And with the new numbers that he gave me, it goes almost up to possibly 26. The other thing when you look at is the 4 and 5. In 4th and 5th grade, you see a number of those little parentheses type thing, and where you see classes had 25 or more in them, which is more expected at that level, and we've always accepted it at that level. And so there hasn't been a problem. Next year, though, neither one of 4th or 5th grade have 25 kids in. So my take on this is we have 38 kids that are coming from 1st grade that need intensive reading. That's a third of that class, and this is only at JSASD. I don't know what I don't know what the AVIS data is. That's basically a third of the kids. We have 7 IEP students, and some of those may be speech. I don't know that. I just know we have 7 IEP students. So my concern is, can the teachers handle it? Anybody can handle something for 1 year, but what are we doing for our kids? Kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and possibly part of third grade is where your kids are learning to read. And that is the most essential thing that we can do for our kids, is get them to grade level reading. If we can get them to grade level reading, we probably save them the rest of their life. If we can't, we're losing them the rest of the time. And when you also look at 25, it's not like they only have 25 for reading. They have 25 all day long, and reading is mixed among all the subject areas. Science, math, art, whatever, there's reading involved. So you have 5 classes like that, and by adding 1 teacher, you can bring that class size down to 21, which would be give our kids, I think we need to give our kids the edge. That's what we're here for, is to teach our students and make them successful. And in today's age, if they're not successful, they're in trouble. When I first started teaching, which is back in 1980, I used to look at my kids sometimes and say, okay, that kid will be okay in spite of himself. By the time I left and went to the administration, I didn't say that anymore. We need to do with the best that we can for our teacher with what's available. If we were broke and in the hole, that's a whole other thing, but we're not. The other thing that I want you to notice that we're afraid that if we put them in this year, we're going to have them again next year. We don't know that yet. That's too far out to know the data. It's a potential, but you would not need it beyond. You would not need it beyond there. And if you look back at if you look back from 21, 22 to 22, 23, we added all those teachers, but the next year we didn't have them, and it was not through furloughing teachers. It was through attrition. Let's see. And you can see over the year, so we've been pretty good about making these adjustments, because you can see over the year, 1 year you had 9 teachers in a grade level, 8 teachers in a grade level, 6 teachers in a grade. So as a district, we've done very well to try to accommodate the kids so that they're successful. So that's where I'm at in this, and I think it's to our benefit to put in a teacher, especially the second grade is that critical year. And I understand that that's somewhat the norm, that from first grade to second grade, there are a number, I don't know how many each year, because we're only dealing with this year, that there's a number of teachers that get to that, start as intensive reading, but throughout the year, they move away from that and get themselves to grade level. And that's what they need to do, to not only be successful in elementary, to be successful in middle school, and to definitely be successful in the high school. Now, Dr. Omer gave us some situations that we have. Number 2 is one which is to add an instructional assistant. He's right on that. The concerns in that, there would be no continuity to the kids. It's not going to necessarily help the teacher. They'd probably be more of a paper pusher or correcting things than anything else. I favor the third option, but you guys know that. I've talked to you quite a while about it, but I think it's critical that we give our kids the edge. Not that we say the teachers can't do it, because I'm sure they can, but why do we want to put that stress on them? What happens next year if it didn't happen for some of them? Is it because there was more kids, or do we take the chance and let it fly? But that's where I'm at. And his goal has been 7, and that's where we'll get to. Well, it won't take long to get us to 7. Well, it'll stay there. I keep hearing through some of the people that I listen to, we're going to have a baby boom. So when that happens, we're in trouble. But right now, this is where we're at, and I think we've been very cautious and did what we needed to do to balance out teaching, or balance out grade levels for our kids. So if you have any questions, I'll gladly answer them from my perspective. And again, like the stuff on the front is stuff that I told you the last couple of times.
I just have a couple things. I can't agree with you, Mary, but, I mean, I'm taking Dr. Elmer's, he's working with these teachers, 7, 20, 24, knows what's going on in these buildings and stuff. He's telling us the teachers can handle this. And I was okay with that, but then I'm looking at his support staff that he's given us tonight. I mean, I didn't
That support staff's
realize-
always
wait a
been
minute,
there.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. I didn't interrupt you. I didn't realize there was this much support staff from K through 5.
Yes.
Also, if we hire somebody for these 25 kids, what's going to happen to that teacher next year? In my past experience of being on the board 20, 24 plus years, we have never let a teacher go. For some reason, we find a place to put that person. And in this case, if somebody retires, we're gonna have to hire somebody for that person. You're having 25 kids right now that you need a teacher for. If they move on to the next grade, you don't hire a teacher or keep that teacher on and keep that class size down. You're telling me that those kids learn so much and now that all of a sudden they don't need an extra teacher, we're gonna bring all those kids back together? Another thing, we moved kids before, we moved them back, we moved them over before 2013 when Nipponos was there. We moved kids over there, equalized class size. I think we just moved some kids out to Avis here a few years back to neutralize class size. Maybe the last thing, I hate to talk budget already, but if you hire somebody at 100, and I'm not talking about the kids always come into play here, but if you're hiring somebody at $100,000 isn't exactly right, but that's a number that somebody brought up here a while back. 10 years, that's $1 million. We got a budget coming up here, and I think then you might help me out here. But I think the next budget is not going to be this. Yeah, what I want to say, the step combination of maybe 2 steps they're going to collect. I mean, we have to start looking forward to that too. So it's going to be a double step.
Not any
this
more
year,
money.
but in next year. So I mean, I don't know. I got to take the recommendation of our superintendent. He works with these teachers.
And I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying the teachers can't do it, Harry. I said I think we need to give our teachers the benefit of the doubt and give the kids an edge. And as I told you,
I understand what you're saying.
as I told you, if you hire the teacher this year, doesn't mean you're gonna have to have them next year. Right now, we're dealing with this year, and as you get into 4th and 5th grade, you definitely don't need him because the 4th and 5th grade have higher numbers.
Those kids all of a sudden don't need that teacher. I understand what you're saying, K through 2, they need the teacher more than they do 3, 4, and 5.
Did you ever see a
I
year?
don't agree with you.
Did you ever see a year where we didn't have a retirement?
But you're telling me that those kids now, all of a sudden, when they go to the next grade.
Here's a couple
it's
things we don't
okay-
know.
It's okay for them to have 25, 26 kids in that class.
I know, I'm not saying that at all.
I mean, you're gonna keep,
You're a year away to know what that data is. They're the only groups in the K to 2, those five groups of kids that have that. They don't even have it this year in 4th and 5th grade or 3rd grade, but we're gonna make our 2nd graders have 25 kids in, which is a critical year for reading. At the end of 2nd grade, we may have all of them on grade level. So you might be okay that you don't need to have the edge. You can't make those predictions a year in advance, but I was not saying that we need to hire this teacher and keep this teacher. We need to hire this teacher for this year to get these kids over the hump and to give these teachers the best shot possible. And the support stuff, that's been there. That's nothing new. It's not that he added it this year.
if you're bent on doing that, then, I mean, I don't know how the rest of the people feel. I just heard from you basically, so, I mean, we moved kids before, move them again if you think that's necessity, but.
Here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that one, Harry.
You have yours and
In order to lower them by 1 person, you have to move 5 kids.
8.
Huh?
8. I thought Dr. Omer said 8.
Why would you have to move 8? You only have 5 classes in the thing. In order to lower by 1 person.
Number I heard?
To make them, I gave you the number of 8 to balance them across all 7 sections.
You'd only need to move 8 kids?
8 kids out of JSC would balance, the number would be the same. Did I give you a number? I think I gave you 23.
Since there's 25 in the classroom or more, I don't know, it only takes 8 when there's 5 classrooms. 'Cause if you move 5 kids, it makes the at Salisbury go up by 1. If you move 10 kids, it makes them go up by 2. Then they're probably about the same. Well, no, because they're only at 19 and a half or 20 right now. Then they'd be about the same. But I don't know that you want to do that because you're going to set up yourself. Are you going to just move kids? And then what about if you have younger kids or older kids that are in the same building? Are we going to have kids in different buildings? We didn't used to do that.
We did it before. I think you were on the board when they made that move. That was one of your recommendations, I believe, back. Reconfiguration.
Reconfiguration, but when he reconfigured, part of it is all siblings would stay in the same school.
I need to hear from the rest of the board too.
Kids are our most valuable commodity.
That was the complaint when I got here, yes.
Yes, and it wasn't because they couldn't handle it, it just was why, it was more about fairness in the classroom. And I get that. Anywhere where you work, you don't want to, like, it's not fair that you're making the same amount that the person beside you, but you're working the same. They're getting the same pay. I understand balance of work. So, but with those complaints, it wasn't that I can't teach in classrooms, or not that I can't. It would be easier in smaller classrooms to teach. That wasn't the complaint. Balancing classroom spaces, not hiring other teachers. So, are we looking at this from the correct perspective? Other thing is, there is a lot of support in I've walked through, there's significant. And if reading is the biggest problem, I would read program obviously, but what's the need? I'm asking. I'm not the teacher. I don't have a kid in elementary anymore. I just, I know like the numbers. I know this versus this, but I haven't heard the actual need, like the need. Okay, I'm a teacher, okay, because of class size. What's the need of the student? Is it reading? Reading is what I hear. Reading is what I understand. Reading is low. When we looked at the curriculum, my biggest thing was, so I don't know. I guess my question is for Dr. Ulmer, if you can't answer it, can you find that answer? What is the need? Because we can say classroom sizes would be better if it's smaller or bigger, but there's no significant finding on that. There's personal experience. And I understand that. And I take that in consideration. But we don't have any kind of actual proof that stands behind that. I mean, look at one-room classrooms. You had K through 8 or whatever it was, and it was all grades in one room being taught, and they flourished. So I'm not saying that I don't want a teacher. I'm just saying I just have an actual that I feel that it's somebody's opinion because we haven't seen.
If you remember, Jessie, I had asked Dr. Almer, I think 2 meetings ago, if there was a request from the teachers, if there were complaints from the teachers, if there were teachers that said they were not able to perform their job well because of the amount of students. And he said no. He has never received any of those types of complaints, correct?
No, and I think I'll go back to what Mrs. Thomas said, even though we don't agree, is that our teachers are, especially, I know those second grade teachers are phenomenal. They're gonna do amazing things no matter what situation we put them in. We just have to make an uncomfortable decision.
Why would we want to put them in a bad situation? They haven't had to do it for the last 10 years. They have 6 extra kids that they have to get to on a daily basis, how many times a day? You don't think that the person that has 6 less kids are going to be able to do more work one-on-one with kids? I'm missing that picture, and it's not like, I mean, there's none of them in K1 and 3, 4, or 5 that have 25 in them, just second grade.
Well, according to your numbers, Mrs. Thomas, in second grade, I mean, you just said that why would we want to put these kids in a bad position? Well, obviously, we put them in a bad position in 18-19. We put them in a bad position in 21-22. We've put them in a bad position in other years as well.
Michelle, what are you talking about? Because 18-19, there was one classroom. Fourth and fifth grade, I understand are going to be higher. We've never questioned the class sizes in fourth and fifth grade.
What's it matter if there was one classroom versus 5 classrooms of 25 students or 24 students?
I'm not saying it was right. We can't go back and redo 19, but that's where it was. We don't, and that has to do with that. You had smaller classes in Avis and Southeastburg, and you had the bigger classes in JSC. I'm just trying to give the kids a better edge as well as the teachers a better edge for you. I don't want them stressed all year. I want, the second grade is where they learn to read, and there are 38 kids, a third of the kids that are coming through that need, that are not at grade level.
Madam Chairman, can we move before we
Absolutely.
proceed with before, please?
Absolutely, but I'm still going to say one other thing. I understand your position and your opinion, but when Dr. Almer comes to this board and makes a recommendation, I don't really know how we could sit here and continue to argue over something on what ifs. There's been absolutely no proof over the past, even in all of the years that you presented here, that children did not come out reading at grade level or even above grade level. There's absolutely no proof of that.
Well, we're just told that 38 of them don't.
Just because there were so many or not so many students in these classes. So, Jesse, we heard from you. Mrs. Peters?
I'm willing to just go with Dr. Almer's recommendation at this point. That's all I have.
Okay.
I'm willing to go with Dr. Olmer's recommendation as well, but I would like to know if we go with option number 4, if we were to go with that, what would that move the students to Avis to mix them up? What would that do to that second grade class size then? You know, like Mary's number here for 25-26 for second grade is 7 teachers and 19 to 25 in a classroom. What would happen to that number if we went with option 4?
You'd have to move, you said 8, I'm saying 10, but isn't that what you said earlier?
It would make it 23 and 24 across all 7 sections,
Okay.
and that would require 8 to 10 kids, depending on what the number is. It would be 8 to 10 that would have to move.
Okay, but okay. I get it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kayla?
So I ultimately would be in favor of hiring an additional teacher. However, that does not seem the consensus of the board at this time. But I don't know that I wouldn't settle for some sort of aid as well, whether it be another reading specialist or just someone to help with anything. Like if the teacher has to deal with a student who may have a disciplinary issue, or another student may have a medical emergency, or just having another body there that these phenomenal, yes, second grade teachers could lean on. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
I have a question for Mr. Enders. How much higher was our budget this year than last year, roughly? You tell me 2 million last meeting, I believe, something like that?
Expenditure-wise, yes. Deficit-wise, the deficit was reduced by approximately $1,000.
And what made the budget higher?
Expenditure-wise, expenditure-wise, debt payment overall was going to go up this year. Our net debt was going to be relatively the same. Plus, we also incurred new debt. And the third one piece of the pie was charter school expenses. Budget.
And they will probably continue to go up unless we get some good legislation.
Unless we get some legislation, yes, I expect it.
And next year's budget, you project is going to be high because of the bumps in the, if we're planning ahead to next year,
Yes, I would.
roughly how much are we going to incur there as well?
I wouldn't even, I don't
Can't
even
even-
speculate numbers.
But it's
I
another
would increase.
large number.
Project an increase today, because I know it's
And if you look at the overall picture in that, Ben, it doesn't change much at all from what it was this year, as far as new money.
Okay. Practicality is the kids are important, but so is the budget. We're tasked with managing our money wisely, and we have a superintendent that does an excellent job, so I'm going to go with the superintendent's recommendation. We have excellent teachers, and they don't have any concerns, so I'm with Dr. Omer on this one.
Thank you. You're up.
I'm going to veer on the side of adding somebody, because over the last 10 years, I've seen a big change in the way things are being taught, and excuse me, the way things are done, sorry, in education. So the, all the questions we came up with about the iPads thing and all of that, the usage of all of that stuff builds every time they use it, because by the time they graduate, they need to know computers and they need to know that's the way things are. But in the earlier stages, I think that more hands-on is practical, and class size is a main concern to me, because I know teaching 16 to 18 people is hard on one person, all right? And it's stressful, it is. People may not say that it is, but, over time, it's a task. But my feeling is, if you can keep it at 18 or something like that, all the way across the board, that would be great. So my vote is that you bring somebody in, even if it is for only 1 year.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any additional comments they want to make? Anything they want to discuss for the class size? Do you, Dr. Ulmer? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right. Well, it looks like at this time, we're not going to go the direction of adding a teacher for this upcoming year. So now we will move on to personnel.
What was that comment you just made, Chris?
I said we will not be adding a teacher for this upcoming year. All right, we will be moving on to personnel. Items to approve, A through P,
Eliminating
with
G.
eliminating letter G, like I had stated from the beginning. May I have a motion, please?
Make the motion.
Second.
Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Are you opposing the entire, are you opposing one?
Yep,
or
I'm
the-
not picking
Okay.
out one or the other.
Okay.
Before we move on, I would like to recognize for the board that Miss Maria Pierce is in the audience, and she was on tonight's agenda as our Director of Pupil Services. Welcome, Maria.
Welcome.
Yes, congratulations.
No need to. We just want to welcome you.
I want to say thanks to the educators in the room. It's really nice that people put time in and work with kids and they're still giving service.
Thank you.
So this July 28th, Brian, is that the earliest she can come, or we don't?
Yes.
Okay.
And I continued that conversation again today. That's why the agenda is worded July 28th or upon release, because we're working on that. She'll be here as soon as she can.
Okay, there is nothing under curriculum and instruction, nor buildings and grounds, nor finance. Moving on to miscellaneous items to approve.
You need to
Letter
take
A,
a
yep.
motion to add that in.
Okay, I just realized that. So I'm going to need a motion for letter A. Currently, Mr. McDonald holds the board treasurer position. So to add in, I guess.
You would entertain a motion to add him to the agenda. The person could either make the motion to motion the whole thing and add him, or make it separate. It's up to whoever makes the motion.
Okay. So I will need a motion, please, for letter A.
Don't we have to vote on him, like, to be?
You have to make the motion first. I would suggest to make it clear, you make the motion, vote on the person, and then vote on the whole section.
Thing.
Well, what if I wanted Sherry to be the treasurer? What if I,
You can make that motion.
And then we have to vote on whoever is nominated.
I make a motion to nominate Sherry as board treasurer.
All right.
Just threw me under the bus. Did you put her up?
Is there a second?
I'll nominate Tim McDonald.
That's the thing.
There's no second yet for.
So I don't need a second for that?
You don't need to, because it's similar to our reorg is, we
Okay,
are now gonna, once you close it, you'll have to vote on them all.
got it. Any other nominations?
Can I close them, or does someone else have to?
No, I think
Make a
you're,
motion to be closed.
now I need a second for that.
Second.
Thank you.
Now we need to.
Okay. I'm going to actually ask you to roll call it, please, Mr. Enders, on the two names.
Okay. Giving me your. Mr. Allen,
Wait, what are we,
I'll go with Sherry Peters.
oh, we're picking.
Brenda, I love you both. I vote for Sherry. I don't.
You can decline it.
Calhoun,
Sherry.
Edwards,
It is nothing personal, Sherry. I know you don't want it. Tim,
What'd she say?
it's not personal.
Who'd she say?
Tim.
Tim,
Okay.
so. McDonald,
Me.
Peters,
Tim,
Furman,
Tim.
Thomas,
Tim,
Emily,
Tim,
McDonald, 163.
thank you, Mr. Enders.
Mrs. Stemler?
Yes.
Can I add right now for the record, I'll waive the $500 salary like I did last year.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Need an actual motion, and
To do
I
the
would
whole
ask
thing.
the person if they would amend that item in their motion to waive the dollar figure, just so that it's in the motion.
Okay. All right, so now I need a motion for A through D. And when you go to give me the motion, if you can also state that you've heard Mr. McDonald waive the $500.
I'll make a motion, and I want to make a statement that Tim waived the salary.
It'll be close. Second.
so is this for A through D?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, are there any questions or concerns? The entire
through
thing,
D.
A through D.
I have one question, but I don't
No, that is part of the subdivision conversation. And I was waiting to see if anybody had questions, but I am going to point out that once we get through the process of the conversation with the Historical Society, we will engage, we will make sure that the community is notified when those items end up on Municipid. I will post it on the website. We anticipate in the month of July. I don't have an exact date, but once we get through the conversation with the Historical Society, we will post on the website when Municipid has those items activated. And we will also, one of the things that was recommended by the board was, once we get through the Municipid process, we'll also engage with community organizations about anything that hasn't been sold, if that makes sense.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or concerns? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we will have courtesy of the floor. If you can just state your name and your address.
Does this thing move? My name is Karen Steidel, 1817 Walnut Street, Jersey Shore. And I'm not sure I can keep this to 3 minutes. I will try. Like I said, my name is Karen Steidel. The reason I'm here tonight is to talk about the Remembrance Garden. I will get to my point towards the end. I'm going to preface this with a little bit of personal information, just because it needs that. My son Gabe was a class of 2024 graduate. After COVID, he finished his classes with JSASD, graduated, very, very good grades. He was a good student. Worked at Walmart, great group of lifelong friends. Kind-hearted, funny, caring soul, struggled with depression, the pressures of not knowing what he wanted to do with his life. I knew he struggled with this, and we would spend hours talking about things, and he was also in counseling. Desired to go in the military, but developed very bad acne, which was extremely embarrassing, so he decided to go on Accutane, which is a medication, a very strong medication, comes with 3 pages of a suicide risk assessment. He filled it out, and we thought nothing more about it. Just a little over a month of being on this medication, he irrationally chose to take his own life on May 6th. His brain was not functioning rationally in that moment. Suicide is caused by an illness of the mind, and a person can be functioning, smiling, and going through life and still not be okay. This has been devastating for our family and for his friends. When I saw a Facebook post that stated, The class of 2024 cordially invites you to attend the Remembrance Garden dedication. Join us as we honor the memory of our classmate, Max Engel, and all those in the Jersey Shore community who have passed too soon. This special evening will celebrate the lives we carry in our hearts and the lasting impact they've had on us all. I was excited about this. What a wonderful tribute to honor Max and all the others who have died too soon. I wanted to honor Gabe in this way. I reached out to the guidance counselor at the high school who came back to me, and she tried to do it in a nice way, but basically said that Gabe was not allowed to be part of the special ceremony or have his name on the wall. I asked her to send me the board policy, which she did. Policy 702.1, number 5, unacceptable memorial gifts and practices. Permanent property memorials to those who have committed suicide, a serious form of illegal behavior, or those that glamorize this method of death. I am appalled that there is this policy in place that states that I cannot honor my son in this way because of the nature of his death. The way that somebody dies should not even be a question. This policy minimizes the death of my son and all others who have died this way. You don't know their stories. It is very discriminatory to anybody who dies this way. This event in our lives was extremely traumatic, life-altering thing that happened to our family and his friends and their families. I'm asking that you consider changing this policy to be inclusive to all those Jersey Shore alumni who died too soon. I believe the policy was written to discourage other people from committing suicide. Perhaps the thought was that if they were honored in some way with a memorial, it would encourage others to want to die this way. Not sure what the thought was there. That thought is very wrong. I never thought too much about suicide until it happened in my family. There is plenty of research on the subject, and I suggest that people should educate themselves on the subject before writing policies that are wrong and extremely discriminatory. Thank you for hearing me. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, Karen, first of all, the board is very sorry for your loss. And currently, I just want to make sure you know that that policy was brought to our attention, and we are currently looking into it.
Okay.
So,
I'm very upset. We have one of Gabe's friends who could make it tonight, and the others, I mean, one of his best friends was the 2024 high school valedictorian. He had a great group of friends, and they were all very upset that they could not participate on the 18th in that ceremony for Gabe. You know, I was told that it wasn't possible.
I don't think that the intent was to discriminate by any means, and like I said,
Yep.
we are currently looking into that policy.
Okay, thank you.
So-
Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. I think that brings us to the end of our meeting, so we are going to adjourn for this evening.